I'm Brian Lewis. I'm managing the engineering and the operations here on the West Coast for Acorn. My area of specialty is probably more in the line of life science and diagnostic instruments, also complex medical devices. First thing is start with very clear requirements of what you need and really think about it deeply and make sure you understand what are the financial needs of the customers out there that are going to be using this device. Also understanding the use cases and what is going to be acceptable to users based on whether it's, say, a point of care. It might need to be very, very robust in terms of what operations can people do and how do we prevent errors from occurring. So quite often those point of care instruments have less experienced users. So you have to put in more time in the design phase to make sure that you mitigate any potential errors that can occur. That's very important. Understanding the real time requirements to go through development. Also knowing whether or not this has to go through FDA and if it's going to have to go through a 510K and what some of the requirements are from a regulatory perspective. It's a very different type of development plan that you have for a research use only device, an RUO device, versus one that has to go through a clinical trial and then get approved by FDA. So very different types of, activities go on. Some of them are common, but some of the regulatory and the documentation it's definitely more for the FDA approved devices. There's a sequence for development that's really important to follow when you're doing life science and diagnostic instrument development. And that's that first you have to have an assay that can be automated and is proven. Once you have that, then you can design a consumable, and the consumable has to, along with the assay, has to meet the cost targets for what you're trying to do. And then once you have an assay and a consumable concept, then you can start doing prototyping and starting to understand what the instrument is going to be. A flaw that I've seen before is that some folks will try to design the instrument before they have the consumable understood. And normally your goal is to try to have the least expensive consumable and assay that are possible. And sometimes you're going to make compromises in the instrument to accommodate that. And it's more important for the final users to be able to be happy with the costs and the usability. That's usually a very important thing, and sometimes folks can rush ahead and try to develop an instrument before they're ready, and that typically adds time rather than saves it. Yeah, lots of challenges. Some of them are common challenges, whether it's point of care or a larger high throughput instrument, and that's having very clear requirements and understanding exactly what the system needs to do, what the costs need to be, how it has to operate, what kinds of areas are important to the final user, what's going to make this thing successful.